Are you a Muslim?
It doesn't matter what I
Okay,
believe in.
so do you want to talk about Muhammad's paedophilia?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm happy to have that conversation with you. Just not with him because he's a demon-possessed lunatic.
Your proof is a book that was written 200 years after he died.
That's true.
That's the hadith.
The hadith were written 200 years after he died. But the Muslims themselves...
So you cannot say that is a fact. You want to hear a different version of the story? She used to help her sister when the Prophet was immigrating from Mecca to Medina.
Yeah.
Aisha used to help her sister to give them food. So that means by that age she was around 8, 7. And he married her another 6, 7 years later. So she was 15.
Which source does this come from?
This is history.
No, which source? Give me a specific source. If you can name a source, I will go and look into it, but you haven't given me a source.
But your source is what? Is hadith?
It's Sahih al-Bukhari. Do you want me to look up the specific reference?
No. I'm saying Sahih al-Bukhari was written 200 years later.
Yes, but in Islam, it's considered authoritative.
I go back home and I tell them about our discussion.
Yeah.
It's two different discussions altogether.
I'm quite happy to go and look into sources if you can give me specific references. I'm quite happy to go, seriously, I will go and look into it.
Please, go look into it.
Give me details.
I don't have the names. I'm not a professional.
Okay, come back next weekend and give me some details and I'll look into them, yeah?
The historical fact that she used to help her sister take food to the Prophet when he was leaving Mecca, going to Medina. But that's you see, if you take a point of view and you support it so much from a hadith that's been written 200 years later, I can equally say Jesus was gay.
You'd have a much harder time saying Jesus was gay than Jesus was a pedophile. But putting that aside,
but Jesus was gay.
Mate, you've been talking for minutes. Let me say something, okay?
According to the Jews, he was a son of adultery. So I cannot go and listen to these people and say, okay, well, Jesus was the son of Joseph.
Would you like to know the difference between the example you just gave and the issue of Muhammad's paedophilia?
I used to call Muhammad a pedophile.
Do you want? Yes. Because a man who has...
I'm telling you that there are sources that say that Mary was a whore. There are sources that say that.
Do you want to know the difference between those sources and the one that I'm using?
The ones that you're using are...
The hadith, yes. Which is considered authoritative by Muslims. Christians don't care about later Jewish propaganda.
Don't talk to me about Muslims, please. They are fucked. Talk to me about Islam. That's something else.
Is the hadith considered authoritative in Islam?
If the Muslims accept it after 200 years to accept this written there, that's their problem. That's their problem. It is written 200 years later.
Okay, so but they consider it authoritative, right?
That's their problem.
Exactly, that's my point. It is their problem. It is their problem that according to their own sources, their prophet was a pedophile.
They have their sources.
Good.
They can say whatever they want, but that doesn't mean the truth.
And I will use that as an argument against them.
That Virgin Mary
it's completely irrelevant.
No, why?
Demonstrate how it's relevant.
Your whole point is the immaculate.
The point I'm making right now is that according to Islam, Muhammad was a pedophile.
The guy.
You're just changing the subject.
I'm telling you why you're changing the subject.
No, I was talking about Muhammad's paedophilia, and suddenly you're talking about
Mary being a whore.
Mary, yeah, and I reject the suggestion that the Theotokos was a whore.
Your sources,
they're not our sources.
Yes. Where did I get this from my pocket? I read this according to the Jews.
And it's completely irrelevant. I don't care what the Jews think about Mary. I care what the Muslims think about Muhammad.
I don't care what you think about.
Then why are you having a conversation with me about it?
I know that Muhammad is not a pedophile because I told you she helped her sister during the Hijrah.
Right, and you can give me some. You can bring me some sources, and I'll look into it. I've already said that.
Yes.
But the Islamic sources that are considered authoritative by most, perhaps, or no, I'm not going to forget authoritative.
200 years after that.
But Muslims consider it authoritative. He's completely missing the point. JC, is he getting the point?
No.
He's missing the point, isn't he?
No. Here I'm telling you that your sources. Why are your sources better than my sources?
Because they're sources that the Muslims consider authoritative.
The Jewish sources, they say she was a whore.
I don't care.
Or
I don't care.
That's a dispute.
I don't care. It's irrelevant to the point I'm making. The point I'm making is this, that according to the Muslims' own sources, Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl. That is pedophilia.
If I'm telling you those sources are written 200 years later, why don't you just sit there and think, shit, 200 years later, that must be...
Exactly.
No. There are Muslims called Qur'aniyin. They believe in the Quran. If it's written in the Quran, it's a fact.
And
but
if there was a Quran-only
if
Muslim here, I would be having a different conversation with him.
I heard you hearing your father, hearing your grandfather, he heard his uncle that 180 years
fiction, 600 years later, he does his main argument.
What's worse? What's worse? Killing a woman or raping a woman? What's worse?
I'd probably say raping a woman is worse. That's just my opinion.
But I'm gonna tell you something.
What?
Islam, when come, Prophet Muhammad, when he come, he stopped killing the girl.
Muhammad sometimes did good things. That doesn't justify the bad stuff that he did.
He stopped killing the girls during their childhood. Okay, you don't know this. Okay,
The fact that Muhammad did some good things doesn't change the fact that he was a paedophile and a slaver and a murderer. He owned and traded slaves. You see what I mean?
Islam, the Prophet Muhammad, when he come, he stopped something called Wad al-Banat. Wad al-Banat, they used to purify the girls.
Killing children. Yes, I know, you've said that,
so
and I've acknowledged it.
How he stopped this, and you say he raped a
yes,
girl 9 years.
Of course.
Never.
That's what it says in your own sources. Do you want me to get you the reference from Sahih al-Bukhari where it says that she was 9 years old?
In my sources more than I believe in my
You haven't given me any sources, mate.
You should be a Muslim.
I'm gonna tell you something.
No, I would never become a Muslim.
You really believe in the...
Thanks be to God, I will never become a Muslim. I will die before I become a Muslim.
You really believe in Sahih al-Bukhari?
No, I don't, but the Muslims do. You're completely missing the point. What Muslims?
This is the misconception. Muslims do not agree with those 7,000 hadiths are there.
So
al-Bukhari gathered.
Listen, my friend,
Crazy
you got
Muslim.
Black, white. You got black, white, and Asian Muslims. Go finish your dinner.
I never said otherwise. I'm not sure how that's relevant. How is that relevant to the discussion?
You can't say they're all the same.
Why are you bringing race into it? We're talking about different Muslim sects. If I had a Quran-only Muslim standing here, I would be having a...
What's your criteria to say, is this a woman ready to get married or not?
I don't need to have an answer to that to know that having sex with a 9-year-old is paedophilia.
They got engaged.
Let me just get involved if you don't mind. Remember, keep in mind, people at that time had so much enmities against Prophet Muhammad. They accused him of being a magician, a liar. Yeah. Now, let me tell you this. All these kind of accusations in terms of his marriage, they just came recently. What this tells you is, at that time, it was absolutely fine. It was normal. If it was something bad, people would have talked about it. We have never heard about it before. It just came recently. All these people started to talk about his marriage.
She's one of the most scholar.
Are you saying that there's no young girls being sold into marriage in today's world?
That's a very legitimate question.
Is that what you're saying?
Can we shelve that for a moment, bro? It's a good question. It's a good question, but I want to respond to a point you
Let
made.
me just clarify my idea if you don't mind. Look, if someone, for example, hates me, I'm looking for just any mistake against me, he would have definitely looked into everything about my character, including marriages and stuff. Okay?
Ideally.
So in terms of Prophet Muhammad, like I said again and again, back at that time, no one mentioned anything about his marriage. They accused him of magician, being a liar, whatever you want, learning books from someone. So why didn't they talk about his marriage?
I'm going to answer that.
Sorry, that was 1,500 years ago.
I'm going to answer that.
We're not talking about 50 years ago. Even nowadays, there's a difference between marriage now and 50 years back and 100 years back.
Do you, as a Muslim, that you've made your point and you're going off minutes and minutes, let me make mine. You, as a Muslim, believe that Muhammad was the greatest man who ever lived and the most perfect example for all mankind in every time,
100%.
right? That means you can't use the argument that he was just a product of his time, it was normal back then, because you believe he's the greatest, the moral example for all humanity in all times.
When I say normal, according to his age and time, in the sense
But you don't believe he was a product of his age and time. You believe he was the greatest man who ever lived. You You can't have it three ways. You can't say Muhammad was the greatest man who ever lived and paedophilia is wrong and Muhammad had sex with Aisha when she was a 9-year-old girl. You've got to choose one.
Let me clarify my idea. Even nowadays, compared to 50 years back or 100 years back, there are differences about marriages.
And?
For example, 100 years back, people would consider marrying a 17 or 16-year-old girl fine, isn't it? We all know it, even probably in the West. Nowadays, things have changed, isn't it? Massively. So
and that's completely irrelevant.
No, it's irrelevant. That tells you 15 years, 100 back, okay, that means it was normal for that type of age because people or girls or women.
I've already responded to this argument. He's missed the point.
So you can't just
they weren't different. A 9-year-old is a child having sex with a 9-year-old, which is what your prophet. Where does it say that in the Bible? Show me where it says that in the Bible. He's just repeating himself because he hasn't got an argument. It doesn't say anywhere in the Bible that Rebecca was 3 years old. He made that up, kind of like Muhammad made up the Quran. It's a lie, Muslims. It doesn't say in the Bible that Rebecca was only 3 years old. It doesn't say in the Bible that Mary was a child. In fact, what? The point is, Muhammad, according to your own sources, had sex with a 9-year-old girl. I don't care if it was normal back in the day. It is paedophilia. And that is all there is to it. People say he was the greatest man who ever lived. He was not. And I will never be his follower. And that is all we have to say. Deus Vult, Christ is risen.